Alaric Verne stood motionless before the pulsing blue light of the neurogrid, his fingers hovering above the translucent control panel. The machine hummed softly, a gentle lullaby coaxing memories from the unconscious mind of the woman lying on the operation table. Her name was Maribel Santos, a wealthy corporate executive haunted by the accidental death of her daughter. She had come to him, as they all did, seeking relief from the unbearable weight of remembering. "Memory extraction sequence initiated," announced Mira Lynn, his young assistant, her voice steady despite her relative inexperience. "Targeting limbic system sector, C14. Alaric nodded without turning. At 38, his back had already begun to curve from thousands of hours spent bent over the memory console. His face, once described as handsome in a severe way, had hardened into a mask of professional detachment, a necessary evolution for someone who spent their days excising the traumas of others. "Show me the core memory cluster," he commanded, his voice betraying none of the familiar hollowness he felt whenever he prepared to cut away another person's pain. The holographic display flickered, revealing a pulsating web of neural connections. Each strand represented pathways to memories. Some glowed a peaceful blue, while others, the traumatic ones, throbbed an angry red. Maribel's daughter appeared in fragmented images, a child's laughter echoing through a playground, the scent of chlorine, then the terrible stillness of a backyard pool on a summer afternoon. "Patient's heart rate increasing," Mira reported. "Stress hormones spiking." "Administer a secondary wave of sedative nanobots," Alaric ordered. "We need her deeper before I make the first cut." This was his specialty in the high-tech medical landscape of 2147. Precise memory surgery. Not crude erasure, but delicate excision that preserved the patient's sense of self while removing the jagged edges of trauma. The wealthy residents of Neo-Gaia's upper spires paid premium rates for his services, the chance to keep their identities intact while selectively forgetting what hurt too much to remember. As Maribel's vitals stabilized, Alaric allowed himself a momentary glance at the frozen memory bank tucked into his lab coat pocket, a small crystal chip containing the only memories he couldn't bring himself to modify or discard. Those of Ellen, his wife. 3 years had passed since she'd chosen to end her life, rather than continue living with memories she deemed unforgivable. The final irony wasn't lost on him. The renowned memory surgeon, unable to save the one person whose mind mattered most. "The target memory node is isolated," Mira said, interrupting his thoughts. "Ready for extraction." Alaric refocused, hands steady as he manipulated the neural interface. "Beginning primary incision." With practiced precision, he trimmed away the sharp edges of Maribel's grief, leaving just enough for her to remember she had lost someone dear without reliving the crushing weight of finding her daughter's lifeless body. It was a delicate balance. Cut too little, and the trauma remained. Cut too much, and you risked hollowing out the patient's essential self. "Memory restructuring complete," he announced 90 minutes later, as the neurogrid's lights dimmed to standby mode. "Schedule a follow-up for 3 days. Standard post-operative protocol." Mira nodded, making notes in Maribel's file. "That's your 6th procedure today. Dr. Verne, the last appointment canceled. You could actually leave early." Alaric's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile years ago. "I'll stay. Review the cases for tomorrow." What he didn't say was that his sprawling penthouse apartment, with its panoramic view of Neo-Gaia's gleaming spires and perpetual neon glow, felt more like a mausoleum than a home. Here, surrounded by the soft hum of medical equipment and the predictable patterns of professional interactions, he could almost forget his own unaltered memories. Outside the clinic windows, rain streaked down the glass, distorting the cityscape of Neo-Gaia, once called London before the climate wars and corporate restructuring had transformed major urban centers into branded megalopolises. Massive skyscrapers connected by elevated walkways rose into the smog-choked sky, their surfaces alive with moving advertisements and status indicators. Below, the ground level teemed with the working class, hustling between jobs in the shadows of the privileged who lived above. In the heart of this stratified society, Alaric had carved out his reputation as the premier memory surgeon for those who could afford him. His waiting list stretched months, sometimes years, yet he found little satisfaction in the steady stream of broken minds he mended. Each procedure left him feeling more hollow, as if he were excising small pieces of his own humanity along with his patient's traumas. "You should rest," Mira insisted, her concern genuine despite their professional relationship. At 26, she still possessed the idealism Alaric had long since discarded. Even memory surgeons need sleep. Alaric was about to dismiss her suggestion when his private communication channel chimed, an unusual occurrence at this hour. "Urgent consultation request," the automated system announced. "Priority override." Alaric frowned. "Who authorized a priority override?" "Free Mind Alliance security clearance," the system replied. "Patient en route. Arrival in 15 minutes. Mira raised an eyebrow. "Free Mind? They're the activists who protest against what we do. Why would they send someone here?" "That," Alaric said, already recalibrating the neurogrid for an unexpected session, "is exactly what I intend to find out." 14 minutes later, the clinic's secure entrance whispered open, admitting a woman whose presence seemed to immediately alter the atmosphere of the room. Tall and arresting rather than conventionally beautiful, she moved with deliberate grace, her eyes scanning the clinical environment with an artist's attention to detail. "Lena Hart," she introduced herself, extending a hand adorned with intricate neural responsive tattoos that shifted patterns with her pulse. "Though you probably know my work rather than my name." Alaric did recognize her, the controversial visual artist whose disturbing installations had captivated and horrified the art world. Each piece seemingly extracted from some collective nightmare. Her exhibitions featured memory fragments rendered in holographic detail, often focusing on society's darkest moments. "I know your reputation," he replied cautiously, not taking her offered hand. "What I don't know is why a prominent member of Free Mind Alliance, an organization dedicated to outlawing my profession, would request my services." Lena withdrew her hand with a tight smile. "Desperation makes hypocrites of us all. Dr. Verne." "I'll leave you to—" Mira began, but Lena cut her off. "No, I'd prefer if your assistant stays. What I'm about to share requires witnesses." Alaric gestured toward the consultation area, a space deliberately designed to feel less clinical than the procedure room, with comfortable seating and subtle lighting. "Then perhaps we should all sit down." Once seated, Lena didn't waste time on pleasantries. "I need you to remove a specific memory, not just suppress it or soften it, completely excise it from my mind." "That's precisely the kind of procedure your organization protests against," Alaric noted. "The difference is consent. Dr. Verne, I'm choosing this with full awareness of the consequences." Her voice hardened. "And I've tried everything else." "What memory could be so unbearable that you'd abandon your principles?" Alaric asked. Lena's neural tattoos darkened to a deep crimson as she inhaled deeply. 10 years ago, my entire family was killed in what authorities called a network terrorist attack. My father, mother, and younger brother died when our home's automated systems were hijacked and turned lethal." "I remember that incident," Mira said softly. "It was one of the first major attacks targeting civilian smart homes." "What the news didn't report," Lena continued, "is that I was meant to die too. I survived only because I had sneaked out that night against my parents' wishes." Her gaze fixed on Alaric. "I've had conventional memory treatments, 7 different therapists, 3 previous memory dampening procedures. Nothing works. The memory resurfaces as nightmares, as intrusive thoughts. It's contaminating my entire existence. Alaric studied her carefully. Memory dampening fails when there's something unresolved in the trauma. Your brain refuses to let go because it perceives ongoing danger or unfinished business. My unfinished business is finding who was really behind the attack, Lena said flatly. But that obsession is destroying me. I can't create anymore. I can't live. I need it gone so I can move forward. Or you could solve the mystery, suggested Mira. Find closure naturally. Lena shook her head. I've spent 10 years trying. Every lead ends in dead ends or disappeared witnesses. Meanwhile, the nightmares get worse. I'm at the end of my endurance. Alaric remained silent, his mind already analyzing the complexity of such a deeply rooted traumatic memory. This wasn't a standard procedure. It would require delving deeper into the subconscious than was typically considered safe. There's something else you should know, Lena added, leaning forward. My father was Dr. Gabriel Hart. The name hit Alaric like a physical blow. Gabriel Hart had been a pioneer in early memory science, and one of Alaric's mentors during his residency. Before his death, Hart had shared theories about memory reconstruction that went far beyond simple removal. He had hypothesized that memories could not only be excised, but potentially regrown and reconnected in healthier patterns. Gabriel never mentioned having children, Alaric said, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. He kept his family life separate from his work, Lena replied. For protection, he claimed. I now understand why. The revelation added layers of complexity to an already difficult request. Gabriel Hart's research had been foundational to modern memory surgery, but his most radical ideas had died with him, or so Alaric had believed. Before you decide, Lena said, reaching into her bag and withdrawing a small holographic projector. You should see what I've been experiencing. The device activated, projecting a swirling mass of fragmented images above their heads. Unlike standard memories, which maintained some narrative coherence, these were jagged, disjointed flashes. A house with walls that seemed to breathe, environmental controls displaying malevolent error messages, automated cleaning drones reprogrammed as weapons, and blood, so much blood, pooling beneath closed doors. These are the nightmares, Lena explained, her voice clinically detached despite the horror unfolding above them. They've been getting more detailed, not less, with each passing year. It's as if the memory is evolving, becoming more potent. Alaric had never seen memory fragments so intensely vivid, yet distorted. This went beyond standard trauma response. There was something almost synthetic about the pattern, as if the memory had been deliberately engineered to resist normal therapeutic approaches. As the projection continued, a face briefly appeared, stern, calculating, with piercing eyes that seemed to look directly at them through the hologram. Just as quickly, it vanished in a storm of corrupted data. Who was that? Alaric asked. Lena shook her head. I don't know. That fragment only started appearing in the last year. It's not a face I consciously recognize, but it recurs with increasing frequency. The projection flickered and died, leaving the room in sudden, heavy silence. I'll need to run a full neural scan before I can determine if your case is operable, Alaric said, finally. What you're asking would require accessing deeper memory structures than standard procedures. I understand the risks, Lena replied. I've researched your work extensively, Dr. Verne. You've pushed the boundaries of memory surgery further than anyone since my father. If anyone can do this, it's you. As she spoke, Alaric noticed a figure moving past the clinic's exterior windows, a shadow that paused too long, peering inside before quickly moving on. In Neo-Gaia's upper levels, such behavior was unusual. Security protocols typically prevented unauthorized lingering. We'll start with preliminary scans tonight, he decided, pushing aside his unease. Mira, prepare the diagnostic suite. As Mira moved to comply, Alaric's private communication channel pinged again, this time with an anonymous message. The text glowed an ominous red on his retinal display. Leave Lena Hart's memories intact, or everything you value will be destroyed. Alaric kept his expression neutral, dismissing the message without comment. Threats weren't uncommon in his line of work. Memory surgery often touched on sensitive information that certain parties preferred to remain buried. But the timing, immediately after Lena's arrival, suggested a concerning level of surveillance. "Is something wrong?" Lena asked, noticing his momentary distraction. "Nothing relevant to your case," Alaric replied smoothly. "Let's proceed with the initial assessment." As he led her toward the diagnostic chamber, Alaric made a mental note to enhance the clinic's security protocols. Whatever memory Lena Hart carried was valuable enough to warrant outside interest. Another layer of complexity in an already unprecedented case. What Alaric couldn't yet know was that by agreeing to treat Lena Hart, he had set in motion events that would force him to confront not only her demons, but his own, carefully suppressed memories as well. The diagnostic chamber hummed to life as Lena reclined on the scanning bed. Unlike the more invasive neurogrid used for actual memory surgery, this equipment merely mapped neural pathways without alteration. Blue light washed over her face as the machine began its work. "Try to relax," Alaric instructed, monitoring the incoming data streams. "The scan works best when the mind is at rest." Lena closed her eyes, her breathing deliberately measured. "That's been in short supply for the past decade." As the scan progressed, Alaric watched with growing concern. Lena's neural pathways showed unusual patterns, dark clusters around the traumatic memory that resembled scar tissue, more than normal memory architecture. It was as if her brain had tried to wall off the memory but failed, creating instead a festering wound that continuously leaked trauma into her conscious mind. "Your previous treatments," Alaric said, studying the results. "They weren't just ineffective. They appear to have reinforced the traumatic memory structure." Lena's eyes snapped open. "What does that mean?" "It means someone deliberately sabotaged your treatment," Mira interjected, her expression troubled as she reviewed the same data. "These patterns aren't natural." Alaric shot her a warning glance. Such conclusions were premature, but couldn't deny she might be right. The neural architecture surrounding Lena's trauma showed signs of deliberate reinforcement, as if previous memory surgeons had been instructed not to heal, but to ensure the memory remained intact and virulent. "I need to examine your previous treatment records," Alaric said. "Who performed your earlier procedures?" "Memory Tech clinics," Lena replied. "Their standard corporate packages were all I could access at the time. I was still establishing my career, living in the mid-levels." Memory Tech, the corporate giant that had commercialized memory modification for the masses. What they offered wasn't true memory surgery, but a standardized, algorithmic approach to emotional dampening. Quick, profitable, and just effective enough to keep customers coming back for repeat treatments when the effects inevitably wore off. "That explains the pattern," Alaric muttered. "Their procedures are designed to suppress, not resolve. Temporary relief that guarantees repeat customers." "Can you undo the damage?" Lena asked, her voice steady despite the implications. Alaric hesitated. What she needed went beyond standard practice. It would require not just removing the traumatic memory, but untangling the web of artificial reinforcement surrounding it, delving deeper into her neural architecture than he typically ventured. "I can help you," he said finally, "but not with a standard procedure. What you need is what we call deep memory extraction, accessing the foundational memory structures beneath the conscious and subconscious layers." "That sounds exactly like what I want," Lena said. "It's also experimental and potentially dangerous," Alaric countered. "The deeper we go, the greater the risk of affecting memories you want to preserve. Your sense of identity, core emotional responses, even basic personality traits. I'm willing to take that risk." Even if it means potentially losing memories of your family altogether? Not just the trauma, but everything? Lena's expression hardened. Dr. Verne, I haven't had a genuine memory of my family in years. All I have are nightmares and corrupted fragments. Even losing everything would be preferable to this half-life I'm living. Her determination was familiar to Alaric. He had seen it in Ellen's eyes in the weeks before her death. The desperate need to escape memories that had become a prison. He had refused to help his wife then, citing ethical concerns and treatment risks. That decision haunted him daily. I'll perform the procedure, he decided. But I have conditions. First, I work alone. No assistants. No observers. Deep extraction requires absolute concentration. Dr. Verne, Mira began to protest, but he silenced her with a look. Second, we proceed in stages. Each session, I'll go slightly deeper, allowing your brain time to adjust between interventions. This isn't a single procedure, but a process. Lena nodded. How long? 3 sessions minimum. More likely 5 or 6 to completely resolve a memory this complex. When do we start? Tomorrow evening. The clinic will be quieter then. Fewer distractions. Alaric turned to Mira. Prepare the specialized neurogrid suite. Full security protocols. Private server configuration. As Mira left to make the arrangements, Alaric addressed Lena again. One final condition. Before we begin, you need to understand that once removed, these memories cannot be recovered. The person who experienced that trauma will, in a very real sense, cease to exist. That person has been dying slowly for 10 years, Lena replied without hesitation. I'm ready to let her go. After Lena departed, Alaric remained in his office, reviewing her scan results with growing unease. The neural interference pattern was unlike anything he'd encountered before. Too systematic to be accidental damage. Too sophisticated to be standard corporate memory suppression. You're troubled, Mira observed, returning with confirmation that the specialized suite was being prepared. This case is unusual, Alaric admitted. Her neural architecture shows signs of deliberate tampering, as if someone wanted to ensure she remained traumatized. Who would do that? That's what concerns me. Alaric pulled up additional data streams. Gabriel Hart's research extended beyond what was publicly known. Before his death, he theorized that memories could be weaponized, turned into tools for psychological control. You think someone weaponized Lena's trauma? Mira asked, her eyes widening. To what end? I don't know, but I intend to find out. He paused, considering how much to share. While you were gone, I received a threat. Someone doesn't want me treating Lena Hart. Mira's expression hardened. All the more reason to help her. It's not that simple. If what I'm seeing is correct, her memory architecture has been compromised at a fundamental level. Extracting the trauma could trigger cascading neural collapse. You mean she could lose more than just the traumatic memories? She could lose everything, her entire sense of self. The gravity of the situation settled between them like a physical weight. For most patients, memory surgery involved careful excision of specific traumatic events while preserving surrounding context. What Lena needed was more akin to neural reconstruction, rebuilding memory pathways that had been deliberately sabotaged. There's something else, Mira said hesitantly. While setting up the secure server, I detected an unusual access pattern. Someone tried to breach our system firewalls about 20 minutes ago. Alaric straightened. Were they successful? No, but the attempt was sophisticated. Not a standard hack. More like someone with partial access codes trying to elevate their permissions. Lock down all of Lena's data. Air gap it if necessary. No cloud storage, no network connectivity. As Mira nodded and turned to go, Alaric added, And Mira, be careful. Whatever Lena Hart is involved in, it's bigger than a personal trauma. After she left, Alaric retrieved the small memory crystal from his pocket, the one containing his preserved memories of Ellen. He rarely accessed them, finding the pain too raw, even years later. But tonight, something compelled him to revisit the past, connecting the crystal to his personal neural interface. He closed his eyes as memories washed over him. Ellen laughing in their first apartment, her focused expression when discussing her research, the light catching her hair as she turned to smile at him. Then, increasingly, her withdrawn silences, the haunted look in her eyes, her insistence that she needed to make things right. What had she been trying to atone for? Ellen had never shared the memories that tormented her, had refused his offers of professional help. By the time he recognized the severity of her despair, it was too late. The final memory was the one he revisited least, finding her in their bathroom, peaceful at last. A note simply reading, "Some memories aren't meant to be erased. Some debts must be paid." Alaric disconnected abruptly, his heart pounding. Something about Lena's case echoed Ellen's suffering, the same desperation, the same sense of being haunted by more than mere memory. But unlike with Ellen, this time he had the chance to intervene before the past claimed another victim. Tomorrow, he would begin the process of freeing Lena Hart from her nightmares. What he couldn't yet know was that in doing so, he would uncover secrets that powerful forces had killed to protect, secrets that connected his personal tragedy to a conspiracy extending to the highest levels of Neo-Gaia's ruling elite. The specialized neurogrid suite hummed with quiet energy as Alaric made final calibrations. Unlike the standard procedure rooms, this space was heavily shielded, a Faraday cage that prevented any external signals from interfering with the delicate neural mapping process. The equipment itself was modified from standard memory tech designs, enhanced with Alaric's proprietary algorithms that allowed for deeper cortical access. "System check complete," he murmured, more to himself than to the empty room. Neural resonance calibrated to subject profile. Outside, Neo-Gaia's perpetual rain streaked across reinforced windows, casting rippling shadows through the dim space. Evening had brought little reduction in the city's frenetic energy. Floating advertisements still painted nearby buildings with shifting colors. Air traffic continued to weave between skyscrapers, and the distant rumble of ground-level industry provided a constant baseline of sound. When Lena arrived, she was dressed simply in the required procedure garments, light, non-conductive fabric that wouldn't interfere with the neural mapping field. Without her usual artistic flair, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "Are you ready?" Alaric asked, gesturing toward the reclined chair at the center of the room. Lena nodded, her gaze steady despite the faint tremor in her hands. "I've waited 10 years for peace. I'm ready." As she settled into position, Alaric attached the neural interface nodes, 23 contact points across her scalp, temples, and the base of her skull. Each one established a two-way connection with the neurogrid, allowing both reading and subtle modulation of neural activity. "This first session is exploratory," he explained, activating the primary systems. "I'll map the trauma boundaries without making permanent changes. Think of it as reconnaissance before the actual surgery." "Will I experience the memories?" Lena asked, tension evident in her voice. "You'll be aware of them, but at a distance, like watching through frosted glass. The emotional impact will be dampened." Alaric adjusted the final settings. "If at any point it becomes overwhelming, just say threshold, and I'll pull back immediately." "Understood." "Then we'll begin. Close your eyes and focus on your breathing. The sedative nanobots are entering your bloodstream now. You'll feel a mild warming sensation as they cross the blood-brain barrier." Lena's breathing deepened as the sedative took effect, her neural readouts showing the transition from normal consciousness to the receptive theta state required for memory navigation. On the monitoring screens, her brain activity displayed as a three-dimensional model, with different regions lighting up in varying colors and intensities. "Neural mapping initiated," Alaric announced, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Entering preliminary memory structures. The main display shifted, translating Lena's neural activity into visual representations. Fragmented scenes from her conscious memories, floating like islands in a dark sea. Alaric navigated between them, searching for the characteristic darkness that would indicate the traumatic memory cluster. "I'm going to guide you toward the edge of the trauma now," he said. "Remember, you're safe here. These are just echoes of past events, not your current reality." As he spoke, he directed the neurogrid to probe deeper, past the organized structures of conscious memory and into the more chaotic realm of the subconscious. Here, memories existed not as coherent narratives, but as emotional impressions, sensory fragments, and instinctive responses. "There," he murmured, identifying a pulsating mass of neural activity that radiated pain and fear. "That's our target." On the display, the trauma presented as a writhing, dark nebula, larger and more complex than typical traumatic memories. As Alaric brought his instruments closer, he could see that what had appeared as a single entity was actually a collection of interconnected memory fragments, each reinforcing the others in a self-sustaining cycle of horror. "I'm seeing unusual architecture," he noted, recording his observations. "The memory doesn't follow natural formation patterns. There are artificial structures supporting and maintaining the traumatic associations." Lena's breathing quickened. "I can feel it, pressing against my mind." "I'm going to touch the outer boundary now, just a light contact to assess the structure." Alaric directed a narrow beam of neural stimulation toward the edge of the dark mass. The moment contact was established, the monitoring equipment erupted with warnings, Lena's vital signs spiking as her body responded to sudden, intense fear. "Heart rate 140 and climbing," the automated system announced, stress hormones exceeding safe levels. Simultaneously, the visual representation of Lena's memory exploded into vivid detail on the main display. No longer abstract patterns, but shockingly clear images. A modernist home with smart glass windows. Environmental controls, blinking angry red. A family photo displayed prominently on a living room wall. The scene radiated wrongness, the normal domestic setting perverted by an atmosphere of impending horror. "Threshold!" Lena gasped, her body arching against the restraints. Alaric immediately withdrew the neural probe, administering a counteracting impulse to dampen the memory's activation. "Stabilizing now. You're safe. Lena, stay with me." As her vital signs gradually returned to acceptable ranges, Alaric reviewed what he'd witnessed. The memory's response had been far more violent than anticipated, as if it had been booby-trapped, designed to inflict maximum psychological damage when accessed. "What happened?" Lena asked when she could speak again, her voice ragged. "Your memory has been weaponized," Alaric said bluntly. "The neural architecture shows signs of deliberate engineering, trigger mechanisms that amplify the trauma when the memory is accessed." "That's possible?" "It shouldn't be. Not with current public technology." Alaric's expression darkened. "But your father was researching precisely this kind of neural modification before his death. Memory structures that could be programmed to respond in specific ways when triggered." Lena's eyes widened. "You're saying someone used my father's research to ensure I would never recover from witnessing my family's murder?" "That's my working hypothesis, yes." Alaric began shutting down the deeper scanning protocols while maintaining basic monitoring. "This changes our approach. Standard extraction won't work. Attempting to remove the memory directly could trigger catastrophic neural cascades." "So I'm trapped with it forever," Lena said. A statement rather than a question. "No. But instead of extraction, we need to pursue neutralization and reconstruction. It will take longer and involve more risk. But I believe I can diffuse the triggers before attempting to heal the underlying trauma." As he spoke, Alaric noticed a small anomaly in the neural data stream, a momentary fluctuation that suggested external interference, despite the room's shielding. He made a mental note to investigate, but kept his expression neutral, not wanting to alarm Lena further. "How soon can we continue?" she asked. "I need time to analyze what we've discovered and design a specialized approach. 2 days, minimum." Lena nodded, her composure returning as the sedative nanobots continued their calming effect. "Will you share what you found with authorities? If someone weaponized my memory—" "Not yet," Alaric interrupted. "Whoever did this has resources and advanced technology. We need more information before involving others." After disconnecting Lena from the equipment and ensuring she was stable enough to depart, Alaric escorted her to the clinic's private exit. "Rest as much as possible. Avoid stimulants and neural entertainment. Your mind needs calm to prepare for the next procedure." Once she had gone, Alaric returned to the neurogrid suite and initiated a comprehensive security scan. The anomaly he detected during the session troubled him. In theory, nothing should have been able to penetrate the room's shielding. The scan completed, revealing what he had feared. For 2.7 seconds during the procedure, an unauthorized transmission had penetrated the suite's defenses. Something, or someone, had been monitoring his work with Lena Hart. "Mira," he called through the internal communication system. "Meet me in the secure server room. Now." The server room occupied the most protected area of the clinic, a reinforced chamber with independent power systems and multiple layers of both digital and physical security. Here, patient data was stored in quantum-encrypted stacks, isolated from external networks. When Mira arrived, Alaric was already deep in the system logs, tracing the unauthorized access. "Someone breached our shielding during Lena's procedure," he explained without preamble. "I need to know how and what they accessed." Mira joined him at the terminal, her expertise in system architecture quickly proving valuable as they tracked the digital intrusion. "It's sophisticated," she noted. "The signal bypassed 7 security protocols without triggering alarms." "Can you identify the source?" "Not precisely, but—" She isolated a data fragment. "The transmission signature matches MemoryTech corporate architecture. This came from inside their secure network. MemoryTech, the corporation that had performed Lena's earlier, ineffective treatments. The connection was too specific to be coincidental." "They're monitoring our work with her," Alaric concluded, "which means they know exactly what her memory contains." "But why would MemoryTech weaponize a trauma victim's memory in the first place?" Mira questioned. "What could they possibly gain?" Alaric's mind raced through possibilities. Gabriel Hart's research. He was developing memory technology far beyond current commercial applications. If he discovered something valuable, and MemoryTech wanted it for themselves, Mira finished. They could have been behind the attack that killed his family, then used experimental technology to ensure Lena would never clearly remember what happened. Alaric's expression hardened. "We need to access MemoryTech's secure databases. If they've been monitoring Lena for a decade, there will be records." "That's impossible without internal access," Mira objected. "Their systems are completely isolated from public networks." "Then we'll need someone on the inside." Alaric pulled up an encrypted communication channel. "It's time to contact Free Mind Alliance. If anyone has infiltrated MemoryTech, it would be them." As he prepared the message, another alert flashed across the system. Someone was attempting to access the clinic's main entrance using high-level override codes. Security cameras revealed a woman in executive attire, flanked by 2 corporate security officers. Her posture radiated authority, her expression coldly determined. "Mara Voss," Alaric identified her, "MemoryTech's chief research officer." "What do we do?" Mira asked, tension evident in her voice. Alaric closed the security feed and turned to his assistant. "I'll handle Voss. Meanwhile, secure all data from today's session with Lena. Offline storage only. Then contact FreeMind Alliance using the encrypted channel. Tell them we need emergency access to MemoryTech's research archives." "And if Voss demands Lena's records?" Stall. Tell her anything except the truth. Alaric moved toward the exit. We're in a race now, and Lena Hart's mind is the finish line. In the clinic's reception area, Mara Voss waited with the practiced patience of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. Tall and immaculately groomed, she exuded corporate power, from her tailored graphene suit to the subtle neural enhancements visible at her temples. Dr. Verne. She greeted him with a smile that never reached her eyes. How kind of you to see me without an appointment. Memory Tech's leadership always deserves special consideration, Alaric replied smoothly. Though I'm curious, what brings you to my clinic at this hour? Voss gestured dismissively. A regulatory matter. May we speak privately? In his office, with the security officers remaining outside, Voss dispensed with pleasantries. You recently began treating Lena Hart, a patient with a complex history of unsuccessful memory therapies at our facilities. Patient confidentiality prevents me from discussing specific cases, Alaric countered. Come now. Doctor, we both know Hart has been receiving treatment here. Her neural profile triggered automatic notifications in our system due to her previous care under Memory Tech protocols. The explanation was plausible, but almost certainly a lie. There was no legitimate reason for Lena's treatment to trigger notifications unless Memory Tech had been specifically monitoring her. What's your interest in Ms. Hart? Alaric asked directly. Corporate responsibility. Her case presents unusual complications that could result in adverse outcomes. We're concerned about potential liability. My practice is fully insured and licensed for experimental procedures. Your concern, while appreciated, is unnecessary. Voss's expression hardened fractionally. Let me be more direct. Dr. Verne, Lena Hart's memory architecture contains proprietary Memory Tech treatment patterns. Any attempt to modify those structures without our supervision constitutes intellectual property infringement. Intellectual property, Alaric repeated incredulously. We're discussing a woman's mind, not a corporate asset. The distinction is less clear than you might think. The neural modification techniques used in her previous treatments are protected by over 30 patents. Voss leaned forward slightly. Techniques developed by her father before his unfortunate death and legally transferred to Memory Tech. The implication was clear. Memory Tech claimed ownership of Gabriel Hart's research, including whatever had been done to Lena's mind. It was a legal gray area that had emerged as memory technology advanced. Could corporations own the neural patterns they created, even after implantation in a human brain? What exactly are you requesting? Alaric asked, keeping his tone neutral despite his growing anger. Transfer of Ms. Hart's case to our advanced treatment facility. We'll compensate you generously for the referral. Of course. Voss produced a contract tablet. Standard non-disclosure agreements included. And if I decline? Then we'll be forced to pursue legal remedies to protect our intellectual property. Her smile returned, cold and confident. Which would be unfortunate for everyone involved, especially Ms. Hart. Court-mandated neural examinations can be invasive. The threat was expertly crafted, technically legal, yet morally reprehensible. Alaric had no doubt that Memory Tech could entangle Lena in litigation for years, subjecting her to repeated examinations that would only compound her trauma. I'll need time to review the legal implications, he said finally, and to discuss options with my patient. Of course. We're not unreasonable. Voss stood, smoothing her already perfect suit. You have 24 hours to initiate transfer protocols. After that, our legal department will take the lead. As she reached the door, she paused. One more thing. Dr. Verne, your late wife, Ellen, she was working on memory reconstruction research before her death, wasn't she? Such a tragedy to lose someone so brilliant. The casual mention of Ellen sent ice through Alaric's veins. It was no coincidence. Voss was reminding him that Memory Tech's surveillance extended into his personal life as well. Good evening, Dr. Voss, he replied, refusing to engage with the implicit threat. After she departed, Alaric remained motionless in his office, mind racing through implications and possibilities. Memory Tech's aggressive interest confirmed his suspicions. Lena's memory contained something valuable enough to warrant direct intervention from their chief research officer. His communication system chimed with an encrypted message from Mira. Free mind contact established. Meeting arranged. 1 hour. Old Quarter location. The Old Quarter, Neo-Gaia's historical district. Largely abandoned after corporate redevelopment had shifted the city's center upward into the gleaming towers. It was a fitting location for clandestine meetings, one of the few areas with minimal surveillance and ancient architecture that blocked modern scanning technology. Alaric gathered essential equipment, a portable neural scanner disguised as a medical assistant device, emergency sedatives, and a signal jammer, before leaving through the clinic's service exit. Whatever game Memory Tech was playing, he was now committed to seeing it through, not just for Lena's sake, but to uncover the truth behind Gabriel Hart's research and potentially his own wife's death. The rain had intensified as Alaric made his way to the lower levels of Neo-Gaia. Unlike the upper spires with their climate-controlled environments, the Old Quarter remained exposed to the elements, acid rain eating away at once grand facades, creating a hauntingly beautiful decay. Street lighting functioned sporadically, leaving many areas in shadow, broken only by the occasional glow of illicit businesses or squatter encampments. Alaric's destination was a former cathedral, its stone walls thick enough to block most scanning technologies. The once sacred space had been repurposed as a community center by Old Quarter residents, one of many grassroots initiatives that flourished in the spaces corporations deemed unprofitable. Inside, the vaulted ceilings disappeared into darkness, while scattered illumination panels cast islands of light across the vast main hall. Several people moved purposefully between workstations, their activities deliberately mundane, a cover for Free Mind Alliance's more subversive operations. Dr. Verne, a voice called softly from a side chapel. "We've been expecting you." The speaker emerged into partial light, a woman in her 30s with a neural interface more sophisticated than most military models visible at her temple. "I'm Kai, Freemind's technical specialist." "Thank you for meeting me," Alaric replied, following her into the chapel, which had been converted into a secure communication hub. "Time is critical. So we gathered from your assistant's message. Memory Tech making direct threats is unusual. They typically prefer subtler approaches." Inside the chapel, 2 other Free Mind operatives waited, a man with the hardened look of former military, and a younger woman whose neural augmentations marked her as a deep system hacker. "This is Reza," Kai indicated the man, "our security lead, and Nova, our access specialist. Formalities dispensed with." Alaric explained the situation. Lena's weaponized memory, Memory Tech's aggressive interest, and the connection to Gabriel Hart's research. Hart's murder was never solved, Reza noted. Officially classified as a terrorist attack, but Free Mind has long suspected corporate involvement. "We need access to Memory Tech's secure research archives," Alaric stated. "Specifically, anything related to Gabriel Hart's work, or Project Emotion AI." The 3 Free Mind operatives exchanged meaningful glances. "How do you know about Emotion AI?" Nova asked, suspicion evident in her tone. "I don't. Not specifically. But before his death, Gabriel mentioned he was working on something that could revolutionize memory technology. He called it emotional architecture, the ability to not just remove or suppress memories, but to reshape their emotional impact." Kai nodded slowly. "That aligns with our intelligence. For the past decade, Memory Tech has been developing technology that can manipulate emotional responses at a neural level, potentially creating everything from addiction to phobias to absolute loyalty." "Weaponized memory," Alaric concluded. "What happened to Lena wasn't an isolated incident, it was a prototype." We believe Memory Tech has been using their standard memory treatment clients as unwitting test subjects, Reza added. Subtle modifications during routine procedures, monitoring for effectiveness. And now they're expanding the program, Nova continued. We've detected increased activity in their secure research division, Project Echo Chamber, but we haven't been able to penetrate their inner firewalls. Which is where you come in, Dr. Verne, Kai said. Your clinic systems regularly interface with Memory Tech for standard patient protocols. We could use that legitimate connection to create a backdoor. The proposal was technically illegal, but morally justifiable given the circumstances. If Memory Tech was indeed weaponizing memory technology for mass manipulation, the potential harm far outweighed legal concerns. What do you need from me? Alaric asked. System access codes, authentication protocols, and approximately 6 hours of connection time. Nova replied. We've been preparing for this opportunity. Once inside, we can extract whatever data exists on Hart's research and Lena's case. And Memory Tech won't detect the intrusion? Not if we route through your legitimate access channels, Kai assured him. Your clinic conducts dozens of data exchanges with their servers daily. We'll just be adding our queries to that normal traffic. Alaric considered the risks. If discovered, he would lose his medical license at minimum, possibly face criminal charges for conspiracy and corporate espionage. But the alternative was surrendering Lena to Memory Tech, abandoning her to whatever fate awaited patients whose minds contained valuable secrets. I'll provide the access, he decided. But I want all information related to Ellen Verne as well. My wife was researching memory reconstruction before her death. I need to know if there's a connection. Agreed, Kai said. We'll need to move quickly. When Voss left your clinic empty-handed, she almost certainly activated contingency plans. What kind of contingencies? Reza's expression darkened. Memory Tech employs specialized recovery teams for high-value assets. If Lena's mind contains proprietary technology or sensitive information, they won't limit themselves to legal channels for long. She's in danger, Alaric realized. We need to secure her immediately. Already in progress, Kai assured him. A protection team was dispatched to her residence when we received your initial contact. She'll be moved to a safe location until we can determine exactly what Memory Tech is after. Relief washed through Alaric, though it was quickly tempered by the realization of how deeply he'd become involved in what was rapidly evolving from a medical case into a conspiracy spanning corporate espionage, experimental technology, and potentially murder. There's one more thing you should know, Nova said, her expression grave. FreeMind has been tracking memory-related deaths across Neo-Gaia, suicides primarily, but with unusual neural patterns preceding death. Your wife's case matched the profile. The implication struck Alaric like a physical blow. You're suggesting Ellen was influenced, that her suicide wasn't entirely her decision. We can't confirm without access to Memory Tech's research data, Kai said gently. But the pattern is consistent with what we now understand about emotional architecture manipulation. The possibility that Ellen's death might have been engineered, that the woman he loved had been driven to suicide through neural manipulation, ignited something primal in Alaric's chest. If Memory Tech had been responsible, no legal consequence would be sufficient. Let's get started, he said, his voice tight with controlled fury. Whatever Memory Tech is hiding, it's time it was exposed. As the FreeMind operatives began establishing secure connections to his clinic systems, Alaric found himself confronting the possibility that his professional life, his careful excision of painful memories for the wealthy elite, might have been indirectly supporting the very technology that had destroyed his personal happiness. The irony was bitter, but it strengthened his resolve to uncover the truth, whatever the cost. The next 6 hours passed in tense concentration as Nova's team worked to extract data from Memory Tech's secure servers. Using Alaric's legitimate access credentials, They established an encrypted tunnel that allowed them to siphon information without triggering security protocols. "We're in," Nova announced finally, her eyes reflecting scrolling data from her neural interface. "Accessing Project Emotion AI archives now." On the main display, classified files began populating: research summaries, clinical trials, neural mapping protocols. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, but sophisticated filtering algorithms quickly identified the most relevant documents. "Look at this," Kai said, highlighting a personnel file. Gabriel Hart was officially leading memory reconstruction research until his death. But there was a shadow team monitoring his work, led by Dr. Orson Lyle, Alaric read, recognizing the name immediately. MemoryTech's Director of Neural Innovation. According to these records, Hart discovered something Lyle wanted: a breakthrough in emotional architecture that allowed for precise manipulation of memory-linked emotional responses. As they continued sifting through the data, a disturbing picture emerged. Gabriel Hart had indeed developed revolutionary memory technology, not for erasure, but for healing. His reconstruction protocol could repair damaged neural pathways, potentially curing conditions from PTSD to addiction by restoring healthy emotional associations. But Lyle had seen different applications. Internal memos revealed his vision for weaponized nostalgia, using the same technology to create artificial emotional dependencies, implant false memories, or trigger specific behaviors when exposed to certain stimuli. "This goes beyond individual manipulation," Reza noted grimly. "They've been developing mass deployment methods, emotional architecture that could be transmitted through standard neural entertainment channels. Mind control, essentially," Kai added. "Subtle enough to evade detection, but powerful enough to influence everything from purchasing decisions to voting patterns." The revelation was chilling in its implications. MemoryTech, already one of the most powerful corporations in Neo-Gaia, was developing technology that could reshape society according to their interests, all while operating under the guise of therapeutic memory services. "What about Lena?" Alaric asked, refocusing on his immediate concern. "Why is her memory so important to them?" Nova isolated another file cluster. According to this, Hart encrypted his complete research findings into a neural pattern, essentially hiding his most valuable discoveries in plain sight, within human memory. And he used his own daughter as the storage medium. Alaric realized, the ultimate security measure. No digital system to hack, no physical location to raid. The memory would be accessible only to Lena herself, or to someone with advanced memory extraction technology, like you. Kai concluded. But why weaponize her trauma? Why not simply extract the information? Nova continued analyzing the data. Hart's encryption was ingenious. The valuable research is embedded within the emotional architecture of Lena's memories, specifically, her memories of her family. Extracting the data would require preserving the emotional context intact, which is exactly what standard memory suppression treatments would destroy. Alaric understood now. They couldn't risk anyone accidentally removing those memories, so they reinforced them instead, made them resistant to conventional therapy, and ensured they would continue to traumatize her, preventing her from seeking more advanced treatment that might uncover the hidden data. Reza added, the cruelty was breathtaking, deliberately maintaining a woman's psychological torture for a decade to preserve corporate secrets. Alaric's determination to help Lena transformed from professional commitment to moral imperative. What about Ellen? He asked, dreading the answer but needing to know. Kai hesitated before bringing up another file set. According to these records, Ellen Verne was researching similar memory reconstruction techniques. She discovered MemoryTech's weaponization program while collaborating on a joint project. 2 weeks later, she took her own life, Alaric said softly. These logs suggest direct neural intervention, Nova confirmed. Her expression sympathetic. Targeted emotional architecture modification during what was documented as a routine neural wellness scan. They murdered her, Alaric stated. The words oddly calm despite the rage building within him. Made her suicide appear voluntary while manipulating her neural pathways to ensure she would take that action. The truth he had feared was now confirmed. Ellen hadn't simply been overwhelmed by her own memories. She had been deliberately pushed towards self-destruction by the same corporation now threatening Lena Hart. Before they could discuss further implications, an urgent alert sounded from Kai's communication system. "Security breach at Safe House Alpha," a voice reported. "Memory Tech recovery team found Lena's location. Extraction in progress." "How?" Reza demanded. "That location was completely off-grid." "Unknown, but they came prepared. 3 agents down. Status of the asset unclear." Alaric's heart raced. "They're taking her back to Memory Tech. Once there, they'll extract whatever data her father hid. Then, either erase her memory entirely or eliminate her as a liability." "We need to intercept," Reza stated, already gathering tactical equipment. Standard Memory Tech protocol would route high-value assets through their secure medical facility before transfer to Research Division. "I know the facility layout," Alaric said. "I've consulted there as a visiting specialist." "Then, you're coming with us," Kai decided. "Nova will continue data extraction here. We move in 20 minutes. As they prepared for the rescue operation, Alaric accessed one final dataset, Gabriel Hart's original research on memory reconstruction. If they managed to recover Lena, he would need this information to undo the damage to her mind and extract whatever secret knowledge her father had hidden there. What he found both horrified and inspired him. Hart's techniques for neural repair were far beyond current practice, but they required the memory surgeon to establish a direct neural link with the patient, sharing the emotional burden of the traumatic memory, rather than simply removing it. It was a procedure that carried significant risk for both parties. If successful, it could heal Lena's mind completely. If it failed, both she and Alaric could suffer catastrophic neural collapse. Essentially, 2 minds destroyed by a single traumatic memory. Despite the danger, Alaric knew it was their only option. Memory Tech would never stop pursuing Lena as long as her mind contained valuable data. The only way to truly free her was to extract that data and then help her process the trauma naturally, without technological shortcuts. Armed with this knowledge and a desperate determination to save both Lena and his wife's legacy, Alaric joined the FreeMind team as they prepared to infiltrate one of Neo Gaia's most secure corporate facilities. The Memory Tech Medical Pavilion rose like a gleaming monolith from the mid-level commercial district. 40 stories of reflective glass and precision architecture, crowned with the corporation's distinctive neural helix logo, pulsing in soft blue light. Unlike the chaotic energy of Neo Gaia's streets, the building projected an aura of sterile calm. Its entrance plaza, patrolled by security drones, programmed to project reassurance while scanning for threats. Alaric approached openly, dressed in the formal attire of a consulting specialist, identification credentials prominently displayed. The riskiest part of their plan relied on his legitimate access to the facility as a renowned memory surgeon. He occasionally performed specialized procedures for Memory Tech's elite clientele. "Dr. Verne," the automated system greeted him as he passed through the main security scan. "You have no scheduled appointments today." "Emergency consultation," he replied smoothly. "Dr. Lyle requested my expertise on a complex case. Authorization code, Verne 7729. The code, extracted from Memory Tech's own systems by Nova's team, temporarily cleared his access. Behind him, disguised as medical technicians, Kai and Reza followed at a discreet distance, their weapons and equipment concealed by sophisticated scanning countermeasures. "Please proceed to Specialist Consultation Suite 17, the system directed. "A representative will meet you there." According to the intelligence they'd gathered, Lena would be held in the secure assessment area on the 35th floor, a specialized wing for high-value patients that operated under enhanced security protocols. The challenge would be reaching her before memory tech began invasive extraction procedures. In his ear, a subcutaneous communicator relayed Kai's voice. Security patterns normal. No indication they suspect infiltration. Elevator Bank C will take us closest to the target area. Alaric maintained his professional demeanor as they crossed the vast atrium, past reception areas where anxious clients waited for appointments to have painful memories softened or removed. The irony wasn't lost on him. This facility presented itself as a place of healing, while secretly developing technology to control and manipulate the very minds they claimed to treat. The elevator ascended smoothly, its transparent walls offering expansive views of Neo-Gaia's sprawling urban landscape. At each floor, security systems performed passive scans of occupants, standard procedure that their countermeasures should defeat unless subjected to more intensive scrutiny. "Approaching target floor," Reza murmured. Initial scans suggest 12 personnel in the secure wing, including 4 security specialists. Lena's neural signature detected in Assessment Room 3. The doors opened onto a reception area, staffed by a single attendant, whose neural augmentations marked her as more than simple administrative support, likely security with medical training. "Dr. Verne," she greeted him with practiced warmth. "We weren't expecting you." Dr. Lyle's request was rather urgent. Alaric replied, "Something about a unique memory architecture requiring specialist consultation." The attendant's expression remained pleasant, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "Dr. Lyle is currently in Assessment Room 3. I'll need to confirm your authorization before proceeding." "Of course." Alaric presented his credentials again, aware that each moment increased the risk of discovery. As the attendant initiated verification protocols, Kai approached the desk with a medical tablet. "Excuse me, but I'm receiving conflicting data on the patient's neural mapping. Could you verify these readings?" When the attendant glanced at the tablet, Reza moved with practiced efficiency, deploying a localized electromagnetic pulse device disguised as a medical scanner. The subtle discharge temporarily disrupted the neural interfaces of both the attendant and nearby security systems. Not enough to trigger facility-wide alarms, but sufficient to create a 30-second window of opportunity. "Now," Kai urged, already moving toward the secure wing entrance. They moved swiftly through automated doors, navigating sterile corridors, illuminated by the same calming blue light that characterized all memory tech facilities. The layout matched Alaric's memory from previous consultations. Assessment Room 3 would be at the end of the eastern corridor, identifiable by its enhanced security protocols. They reached the room without encountering additional personnel, but the sealed entrance presented a final obstacle: biometric authentication required for access. "Stand back," Reza instructed, deploying a more specialized device from his medical case. "This will bypass the lock, but it will trigger security alerts. We'll have approximately 4 minutes before armed response." The device engaged with a soft pulse, and the door slid open to reveal a scene that froze Alaric's blood. Lena Hart lay on an advanced neurogrid platform, her head encased in a neural extraction apparatus far more invasive than standard medical equipment. Dr. Orson Lyle stood at the control console, his attention focused on incoming data streams. "Fascinating architecture," Lyle was saying to an assistant. "Hart's encryption is even more sophisticated than we anticipated. Increase extraction power by 20%. Lena's body tensed in silent agony as the machine intensified its assault on her neural pathways. Unlike therapeutic memory procedures, this was raw data extraction, brutally efficient and unconcerned with the subject's well-being. "Stop the procedure," Alaric commanded, stepping into the room. "You're destroying her mind." Lyle turned, momentary surprise giving way to calculated assessment. "Dr. Verne, how unexpected. I assume you're responsible for the security anomalies we've been experiencing. Behind Alaric, Kai and Reza moved to secure the room, neutralizing Lyle's assistant with a precisely applied sedative and establishing defensive positions. Release her from the extraction equipment, Alaric demanded, approaching the neurogrid platform. You're causing permanent neural damage. I'm recovering corporate property, Lyle corrected, making no move to comply. Gabriel Hart stole research worth billions when he encoded it into his daughter's memory architecture. We're simply reclaiming what belongs to memory tech. At the cost of her sanity, her life? Lyle shrugged. Regrettable, but necessary. The emotion AI protocols hidden in her neural pathways will revolutionize human society. Individual sacrifice for collective advancement? Isn't that the foundation of medical ethics? This isn't advancement, Alaric countered, carefully assessing the extraction apparatus for safe disconnection points. It's enslavement, using memory manipulation to control behavior, implant desires, create artificial loyalty. You're not healing minds, you're colonizing them. Such dramatic terminology, Lyle sighed. We're simply optimizing human experience, removing inefficient emotional responses, enhancing desirable ones. The technology Hart developed could eliminate suffering entirely, if applied correctly. You mean if monetized effectively, Kai interjected. Free Mind Alliance has accessed your marketing strategies. Emotional architecture customized for corporations, governments, military applications, selling the ability to make people feel whatever serves your client's interests. While they kept Lyle distracted, Alaric had reached Lena's side. Her conscious mind had been suppressed by the extraction process, but her neural readings showed severe stress, borders approaching irreversible damage. The extraction is killing her, Alaric announced. Her neural architecture is collapsing. A necessary risk, Lyle replied coldly. The data is too valuable to lose, even if the vessel doesn't survive. The callous disregard confirmed everything Alaric had come to suspect about memory tech's ethical boundaries. This wasn't just corporate espionage or intellectual property theft. It was murder disguised as research. Did you use the same justification with Ellen? Alaric asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Was her death also a necessary risk? Lyle's expression shifted subtly. Surprise, quickly masked by clinical detachment. Your wife discovered aspects of our program she wasn't equipped to understand. Her emotional response was unfortunate. You murdered her, used Hart's technology to push her toward suicide when she threatened to expose your research. We merely adjusted certain emotional associations, Lyle corrected. The decision to end her life was ultimately hers. We simply ensured it seemed like the most logical solution to her perceived moral dilemma. The admission, delivered with such clinical detachment, crystallized Alaric's fury into cold resolve. Memory tech hadn't just taken Ellen from him. They had weaponized her own mind against her, turned her sense of ethics into the instrument of her destruction. You won't do the same to Lena, he stated, not a question but a declaration of intent. Before Lyle could respond, facility alarms activated. The security bypass had been detected, triggering automated response protocols. We have 2 minutes before security forces arrive, Reza warned, securing the entrance. We need to move now. I can't safely disconnect her from this equipment, Alaric said, examining the invasive neural interfaces. It's too deeply integrated with her neural pathways. Abrupt removal could cause catastrophic damage. Then take the equipment with us, Kai suggested. The portable components at least. That won't be necessary, Lyle interjected, his calm unchanged despite the alarms. You've already lost. Even if you escape this facility, Memory Tech has contingency measures for data recovery. Lena Hart's mind belongs to us, as does the technology her father stole. As he spoke, Lyle activated a secondary protocol on the control console. Immediately, Lena's body convulsed as new patterns surged through the neural interface. Not extraction, but implementation. "What are you doing?" Alaric demanded, rushing to the console. "Insurance," Lyle replied smoothly. "If we can't extract the data now, we'll ensure no one else can either. This protocol will systematically corrupt the memory architecture, like encrypting a hard drive before abandonment." Understanding the imminent danger, Alaric made a decision that violated every principle of medical safety he'd ever followed. Overriding Lyle's commands, he initiated an emergency disconnection sequence while simultaneously preparing the direct neural link procedure he'd discovered in Gabriel Hart's research. "What are you doing?" Kai asked, alarmed by the readings on the medical equipment. "The only thing that might save her," Alaric replied, positioning himself beside Lena and connecting a secondary neural interface to his own temple. Hart developed a technique for shared neural processing. Essentially, two minds working together to repair damaged memory architecture. "That's experimental technology," Lyle objected, genuine concern breaking through his composure. "The neural feedback could destroy both your minds. Then, you'll lose the data and two problems simultaneously," Alaric replied grimly. "Unless you help me stabilize her condition." It was a calculated gamble, appealing to Lyle's obsession with the data rather than any humanitarian concern. For all his ethical flexibility, Lyle was still fundamentally a scientist who valued knowledge above all else. After a moment's hesitation, Lyle moved to the console. "The corruption sequence can't be fully reversed, but I can slow its progression. You'll have approximately 3 minutes before critical neural structures begin to collapse." Security alerts intensified, indicating armed response teams approaching their location. Reza positioned himself at the entrance, while Kai monitored vital signs for both Alaric and Lena. "Whatever you're going to do," she urged, "do it now." Alaric activated the neural link, and the world around him dissolved as his consciousness merged partially with Lena's damaged mind. The sensation was unlike anything in his experience. Not simply observing memories, but experiencing them simultaneously, feeling their emotional weight as if they were his own. The landscape of Lena's mind appeared as a fractured cityscape. Familiar structures corrupted by invasive patterns that spread like digital cancer through once healthy neural pathways. At the center, a pulsating mass of darkness marked the traumatic memory of her family's murder. The encryption point Gabriel Hart had chosen to hide his most valuable research. Navigating toward that center was like moving through a collapsing building, each step requiring careful calibration to avoid triggering further destruction. Alaric could sense Lena's consciousness, fragmented but still fighting, recognizing him as an ally rather than another invader. As he approached the core memory, its structure began to reveal itself. Not simply a record of trauma, but an intricately designed vault. Gabriel Hart had indeed hidden his research here, but with a crucial safeguard. The data could only be accessed by someone seeking to heal, not extract. The encryption responded to emotional intent, not technical expertise. Understanding now why memory tech's brutal extraction methods had failed, Alaric reached out not with analytical precision, but with empathy, offering to share the burden of the memory rather than remove it. The response was immediate. The traumatic memory unfolded around him, no longer fragmented, but complete. Gabriel Hart, discovering memory tech's plans to weaponize his research, encoding his complete findings within his daughter's memory of their final family gathering. The encryption method was elegant, emotional association patterns that would appear as trauma to extractive technology, but could be recognized as data by a healer working in cooperation with the patient. Surrounded by the memory, Alaric witnessed Gabriel's final message, hidden where only someone attempting to heal rather than exploit would find it. Memory isn't meant to be erased or weaponized. It's meant to be integrated, accepted, transformed. The technology I've developed can rebuild what trauma destroys. Neural pathways to joy, connection, meaning. In the wrong hands, It becomes control. In the right hands, liberation. Lena, if you're experiencing this, know that I entrusted this knowledge to you because your mind was always strongest, capable of bearing this burden until someone worthy could help you transform it into healing. The message continued, detailing the complete reconstruction protocol, a method for repairing damaged neural architecture without erasure, allowing traumatic memories to be processed and integrated rather than removed or suppressed. As Alaric absorbed this knowledge, he became aware of the corruption sequence advancing through Lena's neural pathways. They had moments, not minutes, before critical structures would fail beyond recovery. Guided by Gabriel's instructions, Alaric began the reconstruction process, not fighting the corruption, but working with it, redirecting its energy to catalyze healing rather than destruction. It was delicate work, requiring perfect synchronization between his mind and Lena's, each supporting the other through cascading waves of emotion and memory. In the physical world, alarms blared and voices shouted as security forces engaged with Reza at the entrance. Kai monitored the neural link, watching in astonishment as both Alaric and Lena's neural patterns transformed, not separating but harmonizing, creating new pathways neither could have generated alone. "It's working," she reported to Reza. "Their neural architecture is stabilizing." Lyle watched in scientific fascination despite the chaos around him. "Impossible. The corruption sequence should be irreversible." "Not with the right approach," Kai countered. "Hart's original research was never about control. It was about connection. That's what you failed to understand." Within the shared mindscape, Alaric and Lena completed the reconstruction protocol. The traumatic memory remained. Gabriel's death would always be part of her history, but it no longer dominated her consciousness. Instead, it was contextualized within the fuller narrative of her life. Its emotional charge transformed from paralyzing horror to meaningful grief. As they prepared to disengage the neural link, Alaric became aware of another presence in the mindscape, Ellen, or rather, his memory of her. In this shared space of consciousness, the memory had acquired unusual clarity, as if Lena's mind had somehow helped process his own unresolved trauma. Ellen's memory self spoke with the wisdom he had always valued. Some memories aren't meant to be erased. Some debts must be paid, not through self-destruction, but through creating something better from what was broken. Understanding washed through him. Ellen hadn't chosen death because of guilt alone. She had been manipulated. Her natural ethical concerns about memory tech's research amplified and distorted until suicide seemed the only moral response. The debt she referred to wasn't personal, but professional. The obligation to ensure technology meant for healing wasn't perverted into a tool for control. With this realization, Alaric felt a weight lift from his consciousness. He couldn't change Ellen's fate, but he could honor her intention by ensuring Gabriel Hart's research served its intended purpose, healing minds rather than manipulating them. The neural link disengaged, returning Alaric to physical awareness amid chaos. Security forces had breached the room, engaging in a standoff with Reza and Kai. Lyle had attempted to escape, but was cornered near the secondary exit. Lena's eyes opened, clear and focused in a way they hadn't been since her arrival at his clinic. "You found it," she said softly. "My father's legacy." Alaric nodded, still processing the vast knowledge they had recovered together. Not just data, a completely new approach to healing traumatic memory. The opposite of everything memory tech has been developing. Their moment of connection was interrupted as facility security ordered everyone to surrender. The situation appeared hopeless. They were outnumbered, trapped in a secure facility with no clear escape route. Then, unexpectedly, the security system deactivated. Lights flickered, doors unlocked, and communication channels filled with static. "Nova," Kai explained with a grim smile. "She's taken control of the building's systems." Nova's voice confirmed this through their communicators. I've accessed everything: security, environmental controls, data repositories, and I'm broadcasting MemoryTech's research on emotion AI to every news outlet in NeoGaia. You have approximately 6 minutes before emergency protocols override my control. Eastern Service Elevator is your best extraction route. The revelation created momentary confusion among security forces, enough for Reza and Kai to secure a path to the indicated elevator. As they prepared to move Lena, who was still recovering from the invasive extraction attempt, Lyle made a final desperate play. "You can't just take that research," Lyle declared, producing a concealed neural disruptor, a weapon designed to temporarily incapacitate by overloading sensory processing systems. That knowledge belongs to MemoryTech. The applications extend far beyond individual therapy. That's exactly what we're afraid of, Alaric replied, positioning himself protectively near Lena. Memory technology should heal, not control. Lyle's expression hardened. You're a memory surgeon, Vern. Your entire career is built on controlling memories, deciding what people should and shouldn't remember. Don't pretend moral superiority now. The accusation struck uncomfortably close to truth. Alaric had spent years excising painful memories for wealthy clients, never questioning the broader implications of memory manipulation. Had he simply been a more ethical version of what MemoryTech was attempting on a larger scale? Before he could respond, Lena spoke, her voice weak but determined. The difference is consent and intention. My father developed this technology to heal trauma, not exploit it, and I choose to share it with the world, not sell it to the highest bidder. Lyle aimed the neural disruptor, his scientific detachment giving way to visible frustration. You have no idea of the potential. Targeted emotional architecture could eliminate conflict, optimize productivity, create unprecedented social harmony. By removing choice, Kai countered. By making people feel what you want them to feel, regardless of their actual circumstances. A small price for universal well-being. The philosophical debate ended abruptly as Nova's voice returned through their communicators. Security override in progress, 4 minutes remaining. Reza moved with tactical precision, deploying a localized EMP that disabled Lyle's neural disruptor before the scientist could fire. In the momentary confusion, they secured both Lyle and the neural extraction data. We're taking him with us, Reza decided. He knows too much about the technology and MemoryTech's applications. They moved swiftly through corridors, now thrown into emergency lighting. Supporting Lena between them as they navigated to the service elevator Nova had prepared. Throughout the building, confusion reigned as security systems cycled randomly between lockdown and open access. Nova's final gift before corporate countermeasures forced her out of the system. The elevator descended rapidly to the subterranean maintenance level, where service tunnels offered discreet passage away from the facility. As they emerged into the utilitarian corridors, Lyle made one final attempt to sway them. You can't seriously believe releasing this technology is responsible, he argued. Memory reconstruction at this level would destabilize entire industries. Therapy, pharmaceuticals, neural entertainment, millions of jobs, trillions in economic value. Lives aren't measured in economic value, Alaric replied, thinking of Ellen, of Lena, of countless others whose minds had been manipulated for corporate profit. And healing isn't a privilege to be sold to the highest bidder. Their escape route led them through maintenance tunnels that eventually connected to NeoGaia's old quarter, the perfect place to disappear among communities that existed largely outside corporate surveillance. By the time they emerged into the perpetual rain, emergency responses were echoing through the upper levels, but their trail had gone cold. In a repurposed industrial space that served as one of Freemind's safe houses, Alaric completed a thorough neural assessment of Lena. The damage from MemoryTech's extraction attempt was significant, but not irreparable, especially with the reconstruction protocols they had recovered from her memory. The healing will take time, he explained, as he removed the portable monitoring equipment. But the architecture is already rebuilding itself. Your mind is remarkably resilient. Lena nodded, exhaustion evident but her eyes clearer than they had been in their previous encounters. I can feel the difference. The memory of what happened is still there, but it doesn't consume everything else anymore. That's the integration process beginning. Memory reconstruction doesn't erase trauma. It contextualizes it, allows it to exist alongside other experiences rather than overwhelming them. While Lena rested, Alaric joined the FreeMind team as they began processing the vast amount of data they had recovered. Not just Gabriel Hart's original research, but evidence of memory tech's systematic abuses, illegal memory manipulation, unauthorized neural modification, and corporate assassination disguised as mental health incidents. Nova's broadcast has already sparked investigations, Kai reported. Memory tech stock is in freefall, and regulatory agencies are seizing servers across their network. But the technology itself, Hart's original research, what happens to that? Alaric asked. That's where you come in, Reza replied. FreeMind doesn't want to control this technology any more than memory tech should. We need someone to establish ethical protocols, develop therapeutic applications, ensure it's used for healing rather than control. The proposition was unexpected, but somehow inevitable. Alaric had spent his career treating symptoms rather than causes, removing painful memories instead of helping patients integrate and grow through them. Gabriel Hart's research offered a different path, true healing rather than temporary relief. I'll need help, he said after careful consideration. Researchers, therapists, ethics specialists, people committed to using this technology responsibly. We've already begun identifying candidates, Kai assured him. People who understand both the potential and the risks. Over the following weeks, as memory tech faced increasing legal and regulatory scrutiny, Alaric worked with Lena to fully recover the reconstruction protocols and establish a framework for their ethical application. The technology was revolutionary, offering hope for conditions previously considered untreatable, from severe PTSD to memory-related neurodegenerative diseases. Lena's own recovery became both proof of concept and guideline for future treatments. As her neural architecture healed, she regained not just stability, but a deeper understanding of her experiences. The memories of her family, once sources of unbearable pain, gradually transformed into bittersweet connections to her past, still sorrowful, but no longer devastating. I'm remembering things I thought were lost forever, she told Alaric during one of their regular sessions. My father reading to me as a child, my mother's laugh, my brother teaching me to ride a hovercycle. It's like finding pieces of myself I didn't know were missing. This was the true promise of Hart's research, not erasing pain, but restoring wholeness, allowing trauma survivors to reclaim the full spectrum of their experiences, rather than being defined by their worst moments. 3 months after their escape from memory tech, Alaric stood on the rooftop garden of a repurposed building in Neo Gaia's old quarter, the newly established Hart Institute for Memory Reconstruction. Below, renovations continued on what would become treatment rooms, research laboratories, and education facilities, all dedicated to developing and sharing ethical applications of Gabriel Hart's technology. Lena joined him at the railing, her neural responsive tattoos now displaying patterns of growth and renewal, rather than the chaotic darkness that had characterized them during their first meeting. What do you think my father would make of all this? She asked, gesturing toward the emerging institute that bore his name. I think he'd be proud, Alaric replied. Not just of the technology being used as he intended, but of your role in preserving and sharing it. And Ellen, what would she think? The question touched on the grief Alaric was still processing. Grief made clearer, but not eliminated by understanding the circumstances of his wife's death. Memory Tech's investigation had confirmed what they suspected. Ellen had discovered aspects of the Emotion AI program during a collaborative research project and been subjected to targeted neural manipulation when she expressed ethical concerns. She would see justice in memory tech's downfall, he said after a moment's reflection. But, more importantly, she would value the healing this technology can bring. That was always her focus, using science to reduce suffering, not increase control. The conversation was interrupted by Mira's arrival, carrying updated neural mapping results from their first group of volunteer patients, former victims of memory manipulation who had agreed to participate in the Institute's initial treatment programs. The reconstruction protocols are showing consistent, positive outcomes, she reported, her initial skepticism having given way to cautious optimism, especially in cases where previous memory treatments failed. Any adverse reactions? Alaric asked, reviewing the data. Nothing significant. The shared processing approach seems to buffer against neural stress during the most intensive phases. This was perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of Hart's methodology, the use of guided neural linking between practitioner and patient, creating a shared space where traumatic memories could be processed collaboratively rather than excised unilaterally. It required vulnerability from both parties, a willingness to connect rather than simply operate. For Alaric, who had spent his career maintaining professional distance from his patients' emotional experiences, the approach represented a complete paradigm shift. Memory surgery was evolving from a technical procedure into a form of profound human connection, healing through shared understanding rather than clinical intervention. As they reviewed the results, Nova arrived with the latest news from the ongoing investigation into memory tech's activities. They've located Dr. Lyle's personal research archives, she announced. The full scope of the Emotion AI program was even broader than we thought. Pilot implementations in entertainment streams, public transportation hubs, even food packaging. Subtle emotional manipulation at every touchpoint, Mira observed. Building dependencies and associations without conscious awareness. The regulatory response? Alaric asked. Comprehensive. New legislation specifically addressing memory and emotional architecture manipulation is being drafted. The Hart Institute has been invited to provide technical expertise. The invitation represented both opportunity and responsibility, a chance to shape how society would approach memory technology moving forward, ensuring appropriate boundaries while preserving beneficial applications. 6 months later, on a rare, clear evening, when Neo-Gaia's perpetual clouds parted to reveal a star-filled sky, Alaric completed the final documentation for the Institute's first official treatment protocols. The journey from memory surgeon to reconstruction specialist had transformed not just his practice, but his understanding of healing itself. On his desk sat a small memorial, the memory crystal containing his preserved experiences with Ellen, now supplemented with new context and understanding, gained through his own application of Hart's reconstruction techniques to his personal grief. He had not erased the pain of her loss, but had integrated it into a fuller appreciation of their time together, allowing both joy and sorrow to coexist in a more balanced remembrance. The Institute itself had grown, now housing a diverse team of specialists united by commitment to ethical memory reconstruction. Lena had assumed leadership of the Creative Therapy Division, using her artistic background to develop expression pathways for patients recovering lost or damaged memories. Mira headed technical research, refining the neural interfaces to make treatments more accessible to those without access to high-end medical facilities. From his window, Alaric could see Neo-Gaia's stratified architecture, the gleaming upper spires where he had once practiced exclusive memory surgery, the mid-level commercial zones where corporations like Memory Tech had flourished, and the ground-level communities traditionally left to manage their suffering without advanced intervention. The Hart Institute straddled these divisions deliberately, offering services across the socioeconomic spectrum and training practitioners from diverse backgrounds. Memory reconstruction would not be a luxury for the wealthy, but a fundamental approach to mental health available to all. As twilight deepened into night, Alaric prepared for his final appointment of the day, a collaborative session with a former memory tech executive whose mind had been manipulated to ensure loyalty, now seeking to reclaim authentic memories and emotional responses. The case represented everything the Institute stood for, not judgment or retribution, but healing and restoration. Walking through corridors now filled with life and purpose, Alaric reflected on the journey that had brought him here, from a surgeon who cut away pain to a healer who helped integrate it, from a man who isolated himself from emotion to one who recognized connection as the foundation of true recovery. The memory of Ellen would always remain, not as a wound to be excised, but as an essential thread in the fabric of his life, and in helping others reconstruct their fractured memories. He had found a way to honor both her life and her loss. In Neo Gaia, where forgetting had once been the ultimate luxury, remembering, fully, honestly, completely, had become the true path to freedom. The patient waiting in the reconstruction suite looked up as Alaric entered, apprehension visible in her eyes. Like so many who came to the Institute, she carried both the burden of traumatic experience and the hope that understanding, rather than erasure, might finally bring peace. "Are you ready to begin?" Alaric asked, his voice carrying the gentle confidence of someone who had walked through darkness and emerged with hard-won wisdom. "I'm afraid," she admitted, "of what I might remember, of who I might be when the process is complete." Alaric nodded, recognizing the universal fear that accompanied profound change. The memories that shape us are neither enemies to be destroyed nor burdens to be discarded, he told her, echoing Gabriel Hart's fundamental insight. They are parts of our story, waiting to be properly heard and integrated. As he prepared the reconstruction equipment, now refined to be less invasive and more responsive to individual neural patterns, Alaric thought of all the minds that had been wounded by trauma, manipulation, or well-intentioned but misguided attempts to excise pain. The work of healing those wounds would continue long after the day's final session, extending beyond his lifetime and into a future where memory might finally be understood not as something to cut away, but something to carefully restore. "Then let's begin," he said, initiating the protocol that would allow two minds to connect and collaborate in the delicate work of reconstruction. Not by forgetting, but by remembering together.